Hello and welcome to another episode of Scions of the Southland. As always, my name is Akshay and joining me from rainy Atlanta, Georgia, is none other than Mr. Jake Grant. How are you today, sir?
Good, sir. Aren't you only like a mile from me now? It's raining for you too, isn't it? Or you
See,
over here?
I have the blinds closed, so if I don't see the rain, it doesn't exist.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair. I
If I
also
ignore the problem as long as possible, it doesn't exist.
I was gonna say I also know you live kind of around the corner of your building, so maybe you just don't get the rain. I don't know. It worth a shot. But yeah, it's a little rainy, a little gross, and that's why I didn't go to tennis today because they were inside. So
I mean, I was really waiting for you to give me an opening to make a pun about a certain Creedence Clearwater Revival song.
oh
Um,
man, that's a little too obscure even for me.
oh my God. Or Rod Stewart. Come on, you have to know the Rod Stewart version of Have You Ever Seen the Rain?
I mean, yeah, I've heard both versions. I just would never have thought that's what you were going for on that. But we can talk
Terrible,
about both.
terrible co host habits.
Yeah.
Points against.
I mean,
Points.
somebody should keep score of our podcast. You know, who wins 8-6, something like that. You know, it
Uh,
it add a little flair to the production.
Maybe. We'll just have to get a dinger every time someone wins a point or loses a point. Speaking of points, there were a lot of them scored across a lot of different competitions this week in Georgia Tech sports. I'm going to set up the timer for 30 minutes. You're going to pick where we start today as I vamp until I can find the timer app. Here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah. And I pick that we start with the track because
All right.
otherwise we'll work through them and not give them their time of day because they did some good stuff this week. So.
All right, 30 minutes on the clock. Here we go. Track, give me the updates. I saw a couple of things come around the wire. We did see Nicole Fegans and Austin Kent do some wonderful things like you set up. We also had an ACC Freshman of the Year finisher. So tell me some things here.
Yeah. First off, I think it's Andrew Kent. I think Austin Kent is a football player, maybe, but no. Andrew Kent broke the men's outdoor 5K school record. If you've heard the names Fegans and Kent, it's because we've said them a lot this year.
For good reason.
Yes, for very good reasons. Nicole Fegans owns the record in basically every distance event, and Andrew Kent isn't much far behind her in terms of the outdoor distance stuff. But yes, also Cameron O'Neill, freshman of the year in the indoor season. I believe his main event is long jump. So good to see that from him. He put at least a foot off of his high school, put another foot at least onto his high school best. I can't remember what the exact number is with that, but he had a nice little breakout year. So, yeah, Tech notching a couple more top 25 times in terms of national rankings. Again, the season's firing up now, and as you can tell by us going to two meets, a lot more teams are in action. So I think we can put some faith in seeing a lot of names in top 10, top 15, up and down the squads. But they were split between Raleigh and FSU, so the points are made up and don't matter. So.
Yeah, in this case at least. So it's good. I mean, again, Fegans Kent, I feel like we'll just be saying those names for what? They both have a couple years left on the flats, I think.
I think Fegans might be a senior, just because I remember hearing her name last time cross country went to nationals before this year. Kent is, you know what? It'd be a good idea to just pull up the roster. I'm going to do that, and so that way I don't say something wrong. Got some great names on this roster, by the way. Leif Anderson, man, I hope you go find another continent or something. Let's see, where is Kent? Yeah, Andrew Kent, senior ME. So he's old too, but with the COVID stuff, you never really know who might come back, especially with track being a program that really loves having its master's students stick around. We talked about Bria Matthews, I believe, last week.
Mm-hmm.
Nahom Solomon, took another year and a half after his senior year because he still had eligibility in indoor, I believe, to stick around.
I
And
just
he's a guy.
sometimes like some of these, especially with track, the eligibility stuff does not compute for me.
Well,
Especially like Solomon was like a second-year master's student still racing, which was wild.
I think he got injured one winter or something like that, and that probably pushed him off schedule. But yeah, no, he was speedy, and then his cross country career was done literally a year or two before he was actually done on flats. So
Interesting. Let's talk about the other time trial sport. That would be swimming, who had its NCAA men's swim and dive championships this past weekend. So tell me what happened.
Well, I'm gonna put this out here. I know I said I expected a top 16 finish, top 20 finish, and we got 21st. But I'm not gonna eat crow on this. Sorry. That's because Georgia Tech, while it was a great finish, it's better by 3 spots than the one that they did in the last NCAAs. And they had some great swims from Christian Ferraro, Kyle Pampudis. Many All-Americans shared between the two of them. Batur a great showing in his first time out at NCAAs. All this is really good, but Tech also, I'm not going to say added quite a bit of time, but there was definitely some points that in relays in particular they could have picked up by holding seed. And I'm going to hedge my words here for a second because Georgia Tech is not a team that can just waltz into a conference championship meet and not taper into that or not focus on that meet. At that meet, you need to make sure your swimmers, because there aren't a ton of them that are going to go to NCAAs. It's not Texas or Florida or Cal or Georgia or Indiana. You need to taper into that meet and then just hope you get the best results 2-3 weeks later. And that's what they did. So 21, yeah, if they pick up, they had a couple top 10 relays and top 8 relays all score I believe this is a scientific term, but a metric buttload of points. Because, if you get yourself into that A final, or I guess it's a timed final. So if you get yourself in the top 8, you get 22 points, right? And we got 40 overall. And if we hold seed in those 2 relays that we were highest ranked in, boom, that's 84, or not 84. That's 44, giving us a total of 84. And that puts us right into the top 16-ish conversation. So yeah, I'm not going to eat crow. This team's really good. You can't really, I don't know. I'm not going to explain it away, but it's they
left points on the table.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay to be frustrated with that. I think it's like you said, if they had held seed, then and they had performed to where we know that they can perform in that meet, then you're talking about a little bit of a different polish on the finish, right?
Yeah.
But the way that they and obviously it's a single data point. It comes down to a single data point and how those championships are decided.
Sure.
But still, when you want to project, you have those previous times to predict off of. And if they don't hold seed, then it kind of left in the wilderness there.
Yeah, and I think great examples of this really can be found in quite a few places. But Batura Unlu just barely misses making the A final in a 200 free, and then he goes out and frankly smokes the field, finishes at the top of the consolation final. If he swims that time, but in the championship final, that's another 6 points we're talking about there. Kyle Barone just barely misses the consolation final in the 100 back. Once you're in the conversation there, you at least get 1 point, but you could get 2, 3, 4 with not a ton of movement there. And then obviously the same story with the relays. And obviously you can't really expect to hold top 8 when you're going up against, frankly, teams that are, it's like watching the Gwinnett Stripers play the Braves, like you can only expect so much out of that. But, picking up those 2 points, 4 points, 8 points, you get yourself a top 20 finish. there's just a lot around the margins that I think is really tough for a team like Tech that does need to taper really hard into ACCs because we have such a challenging conference, because we need to make sure all the depth that we want to get through to NCAAs needs to get those times in Greensboro or to notch them before, frankly. But, in Greensboro in order to make sure that they are assured to go to NCAAs, because we don't have the luxury of being, it'll work out. We got 3 guys who could get a B cut in whatever, and have Texas with an army of Longhorns rolling into NCAAs. That's a different story. They're a great program. 15 titles for Eddie Rees is nothing to shake your head at. But Georgia Tech finished as the 6th best ACC team, I believe, just eyeballing this, and finished 21st in the meet. That's
a competitive conference. It's a very competitive conference.
Yeah. One other thing I did want to note before we move on, because I know I ranted a lot there for a second. One, I want to say this is really good, and I want to benchmark it with this one thing in particular. We saw a lot of FSU this year. Wouldn't you say so?
Yes. Lots of trips to Tallahassee.
Yeah, the dual meet, that was really tight at the beginning of the year. We saw them in Athens at our midseason taper meet, or our midseason championship meet. We beat them by 7.5 points. I think that is, if that's the team we have the most data points against, we say we can compete with them and we say we can beat them. Hey, we may not have got them at ACCs. I honestly can't remember, but I don't think we did. Otherwise, I would have noted it. But when it mattered, we beat the team that we knew we were in the competitive neighborhood with. And I think that counts for something.
Okay. I'll take it. Knocking off a couple more results here. Women's tennis was on a bye. Softball only got 1 game of its newly scheduled series versus Middle Tennessee State due to rain. Its previously scheduled series versus UNC was postponed because of COVID issues at UNC. Let's switch gears to men's tennis. They split the week. They had a nice little outing at outdoor Ken Byers versus NC State, and then had a bit of a downer today versus Wake Forest.
Yeah. I'm just going to put this out there before we dive too much into Friday. I was at Friday's match, so I have plenty of takes on that. But today, coming from the emotional and tense match that was Friday to, hey, we got to play inside because it's rainy and gross today against a top 12 team, while instead of getting Georgia Tech plays really well when the fans get into it. And I think that was proven on Friday. Not that I expected the result from today, but 4-1, I don't know. I'm not going to
stings. I think it's whiplash, right?
Yep. That's a good way to put it. They were fairly competitive, not so much in doubles, but they were in the mix. Played really well on court 1. Again, Marcus McDaniel's been tearing it up on 1 and 2 this year. So is Andres Martin. The two of those guys are really something special. But so the Wake game today, or the Wake match today, I know neither of us saw a ton of that, but I was following the scores the whole way through women's basketball and also baseball. So I feel like I at least followed the vibe of the match. And, not a great day, but not a bad day either. But talking Friday, I need to ask, did you see any of this match on Friday?
I did not.
Okay, well then you missed out. Do you want to know why?
Sure.
NC State, top 25 team, Georgia Tech, top 40 team with something to prove at home. You'd think that's a good setup, right?
Yes, and I feel the ESPN NFL countdown music playing in my head right now.
Okay, fair enough.
The competitive, we're really gearing up for this. You're setting this up very nicely, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so you understand that there are some stakes here. Georgia Tech has, through this season so far, beat all the teams it's supposed to, or at least we're close to in its neighborhood. Like Virginia Tech at the time was ranked, better than us, but it wasn't a top 25 statement win in the way that knocking off a top 25 team would be, right? And if you want to make the tournament, Georgia Tech needs to pick up a win or two like that. And if you look back and they at the end of the year they make the tournament, even if it's, last team in kind of thing, I think we can look back on Friday and say that was what did it. Because Georgia Tech, when they needed to draw up at least some sort of movement in picking off a team above them, was able to accomplish that on Friday in quite thrilling fashion too, I might add.
Okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down here.
All right, doubles. We go into doubles, and on the 3 courts, 2 are in tiebreak, and 1 is 6-5 going into the payoff. So on court 1, it's 6-6. I think it was 6-5 on court 2, and then 6-6 on court 3. Georgia Tech manages to take the doubles point, and that includes rallying from being down on both courts. That has to be the tightest play I've seen. And here's the thing about NC State: they are loud, they complain a lot, and they will make sure you know that they are playing well when they're playing well. Tech was able to. Then I know how you're going to feel about that. It's the exact thing that makes you go like, "Oh, that's gross. Why are they being like that?" But number 21 NC State's doubles pairs were quite solid. On court 1, Marcus McDaniel and Andres Martin, the number 43 ranked pair, were in tiebreak against the number 17 pair. And then on 2, Brandon Freestone, Pablo Selcher knocked off a number 30, so top 30 ranked doubles pair, and then it was close on 3 as well. Turning to singles, again, very very close, very gutty. Andres Martin has to be my man of the match for both of these. He pulled off a ranked win on Sunday, but on Saturday found himself in a 4-1 hole up 1-0 against a top 100 player, and managed to, despite, let me say, some questionable calls that were not really getting backed up or overturned by the ump, managed to rally to win 6-4 by winning 5 straight games.
Impressive.
Marcus McDaniel knocked off number 13 Alex Gallarneau 7-6, 6-2 on court 1. That is a statement win if I've ever seen it. And then Brandon McKinney, was it McKinney? No, it was Chendong dropped a point on 6, and then Tech was able to clinch. I believe one was the clincher, but Pablo Selcher won 7-6, 6-2 in similar fashion to Marcus McDaniel on court 3. So top 3 courts for Tech doubles all really came through against, particularly in doubles, some great competition. And then Tech cleaned up. They didn't suspend the match at 4-1. Instead, they played it out. Actually, it was 4-0 when I left, so they must have kept playing out on 6, and then 4 and 5 just did the 1-0 tiebreak. So Tech took it 6-1.
Very impressive from what I can tell from this description.
I was going to say, I know that was a lot of talking. Hope I didn't oversell it to anyone, but that's one of the best tennis matches that I've seen us play in quite a long time. And like I said, if you see us playing in postseason play on the men's side, I think it would have to. This game went a long way towards making that happen. So.
It's the Heisman moment of the resume, effectively.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to call it that, then yeah, I'd say that's a fair way to put it.
Okay, let's keep moving. Another programming note, I guess, on this week. Baseball went 2-1 at Duke. I don't have a ton to say on this one. I didn't watch a ton of it. My understanding from today's game was that it was more or less the same problems that Tech has had with starting pitching sort of coming to roost.
Yeah. I mean, he just Sam Crawford just got hit by the batters from, you could see it in the first. They were kind of coming around on him, pulled in the third. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything. There were some runs that we left on the table too, but we took the series 2-1. I don't know. It was a quick turnaround into an 11 a.m. game today as well.
Mm-hmm.
So not going to explain it away because it would be nice to have as much breathing room behind us as we could possibly get. I believe we are alone at the top right now, but I'm gonna look that up. Duke's all right. They were a top 25 team in a couple polls. So yeah, we're in front of North Carolina by 2 games. I believe they're trying to finish a game and then get in a second today. So who knows? They could be as good as tied with us, but then behind them, Pitt, Virginia Tech, both at 8 and 6, presumably wrapping up their games today as well. So we could be still atop the Coastal alone this time. So that's not terrible.
Just got to go 2-1 the rest of the way. 2-1 every single series. Doesn't matter how you do it.
Hey, a meatloaf every weekend puts you in a regional for sure. So
do not get that joke at all. We are going to step right past it and talk about volleyball, who played a pod in Louisville earlier this week. I watched a little bit of the NC State game that they won. Was impressed by that bounce back performance, but we also have to talk about what came before the bounce back, which was a not so great performance versus the home team.
I got bad news. RE Louisville. Virginia just canceled the rest of its season. So any games that Virginia and Louisville have the slate just became automatic wins. So good times. Anyways, Louisville was a game we needed to win. Georgia Tech had the unfortunate position of drawing Louisville and Pittsburgh both on the road in pod play this year. And I don't know, man. I don't think we really stepped up to the challenge on Friday.
Yeah, you did see that Maddie McKissick was back from a foot injury. That was good to see, especially considering, 2019 Setter of the Year. That will always help. I don't know. They kept it close-ish. I mean, they weren't losing these sets 25-15. It was like 25-18, 25-19, I think. But if you were sort of following the score updates like I was for later in the game, it was close. It's just that it was the same story against Pitt too. It's just that they couldn't get those final couple of points to close the gap. Those like kind of that 2.5 inch or 2.5 point margin in football that they give you for a home betting or for home field advantage, like the exact same margins. I think they just couldn't overcome that hump. And in both cases, I think it was similar performances, similarly disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, you need to win some of these games at some point if you want to make the tournament. And with the tournament being 48 teams this year, even if it's a home match, like you expect to at least look a little bit more competitive. Take a set, take 2 sets. I don't know, and some of it's fluky, some of it's just more.
Some of it's home cooking, depending on where you are.
Exactly. But I don't know. Not that I had myself convinced we were going to win an ACC title in this, but we are no longer in the driver's seat, and that's what you get for losing games to teams that you can beat, or should beat, at least to be in the conversation. Tech's still in the top 4. I believe the ACC sent 3 or 4 teams the year before the pandemic to the tournament. So who knows? I know there's been a lot of chatter about trying to get that tournament back up to 64 teams. So I think there's still hope for Tech. I mean, we have Notre Dame to play still at home. So that's a quality conference win if we can get that coming up here in the last, I believe, what do we have? 2 weeks left in the conference slate.
It's also important to know, we looked at the RPI ratings this week, and I think Tech was sitting around 34th. So even at a 48 team field, you're still not entirely safe there for an at-large. You're in the ballpark, but you gotta finish the slate strong to really cement yourself as an at-large.
Yes. I know this sounds like a bold statement, but I would like to see Tech go undefeated the rest of the way.
I don't think it's
I
an
think
entirely bold statement. I don't think it's that hard of a sell. It's just you have that Notre Dame game, and you got to make the most of that opportunity.
Yeah, that's definitely the one to circle and star for our listeners at home. If you're going to watch one game the rest of the way, that's the one to see. I'm stalling a little bit because my computer's being slow pulling up the rest, but I don't think we've seen Duke yet. I haven't seen any movement on getting UNC back in the schedule because we did lose the opportunity to play them because of their COVID issues in the past. But we'll have Notre Dame and Duke, and then maybe North Carolina if they can get that in, and that's coming up this weekend. So that'll be tough, but here we are.
Mm-hmm. Moving right along, tell me about golf's escapades. I think they were in Stanford this week.
They were. They got ninth out there. Notably, it could have been lower, but Christo Lamprecht, he is a freshman, but he came back with 3 eagles on the back 9 of the last day. An eagle is 2 under par, so that means he picked up 6 strokes in one fell swoop, and that's not bad.
That'll bail you out. That will absolutely bail you out.
Georgia Tech moved up 9 spots on the last day. Oregon also moved up 9 spots on the last day. Those 6 strokes, without them, they would have been in 10th, I believe. They finished ahead of number 45 TCU, but behind number 19 SMU, number 12 Pepperdine, number 8 Arizona State, and then the hosts Washington, St. Mary's, Nevada, and the fellow mover and shaker Oregon. Tech finished plus 14. That's pretty solid. -7 on the last day helps out a lot. I think the man of the match, the man of the week, definitely goes to Lamprecht. That performance with all those Eagles is not something to shake a stick at. Really, really helps when you're playing well, I guess. Let's see. I'm trying to click over to round 3. Golf stats a little slow as well. But yeah, no Norton. Christo Lamprecht, Connor Howe, and Bartley Forrester were our scorers. Everybody finished right about in the same spot, so nobody really stood out. So that's what puts Lamprecht in front. But you know what? This team is not. I think they've kind of settled into the post mega transcendent talent for 3 straight years era, and not that this is their ceiling, but it seems like they've at least found the floor. So, top 50 is an acceptable place to be, I'd say.
Okay. I just want to comment on the absurdity of Washington hosting a golf tournament in Palo Alto, California.
Wait, it was hosted by Stanford?
I thought you just said that Washington was the host.
No, behind the hosts, Stanford.
Yeah, you said behind the hosts, Washington.
No, I meant like behind the hosts.
I don't know. I think your English is poor, and the fact that an immigrant is commenting on your poor English is saying something.
You know what? It's been a long week, and it'll be 4 more long weeks until I can graduate or whatever that is. What was I going to say? Yeah, no, Washington. It was on Stanford's golf course. This was hosted by Stanford.
I don't know. Look, we saw a golf tournament in Nevada, hosted by in Palm Springs, hosted by Wyoming.
Yes,
it gets weird. All right, it's not unexpected.
Yeah, fair.
Okay.
Oh well.
All right, we're moving on before we lose you. The last topic of the day, and we will get into extra time shortly here. is women's basketball. We haven't really talked about it or led with any news about it. We are recording this barely a scant hour after their game finished up. They did unfortunately lose to South Carolina by 12, 11? I didn't really look at the final score. I was just very annoyed at South Carolina not being able to miss baskets. And that makes me feel very, very upset.
I don't blame you for that. It's tough. They scored a lot of points in the paint, a lot of, not going to say easy, but points you think that we could probably at least get a defender on. But you know what? There's only so many times you can come back from a double-digit deficit, and quite frankly, the better, more experienced team won today. And I know that's not a lot of consolation or excuse or anything like that, but I'm at peace. It was a good year. It was a good run. Got some entertainment. Coach did a great job. Players stepped up. That's all I can really ask.
I'm not necessarily disappointed in the performance. I don't want my I guess I don't want my soliloquy to come across that way at all. My thing is I'm very, very annoyed that a team that does not shoot the three ball was able to shoot double its usual or make double its usual number of threes, and then also get 45 points in the paint, not miss miss 2 buckets maximum in the third quarter. It's not, and all of this while Tech didn't play super poorly. It didn't really play all that poorly. It's just it was getting really stupidly unlucky on that all of these shots.
Yeah, and I'm
for South Carolina
doesn't score a ton, but man, we weren't offensively inefficient, particularly in the first half. We didn't see really many, I guess, classic Tech streaks of, all right, now we're going to go 7 minutes without scoring a point kind of thing. I don't know. I think my biggest wish is maybe a little more man-to-man, but like you said, we did struggle to guard the three ball or allow them to take advantage of the three ball more than they usually do. And in the second half, we didn't have the stroke from three. So I don't know.
I think both of us are on the same page, right? We're content. Yeah. We are fine with the outcome. I just have a couple of quibbles with just the statistical absurdity of it.
And like the men, because they got both an appearance and a Sweet 16, they'll need two new banners as well. So it'll give us something to look forward to in the fall. Now there's some expectations.
Absolutely.
With hopefully being able to play here's an addendum. I know you can't undo injuries and stuff like that, but having Sarah Bates to space the floor against this team, I think would have helped us a decent amount. And getting some more help next year in terms of just depth, getting people back from
not playing a 7-woman rotation might be nice.
Yeah, some good recruiting. Man, I had the thought this morning, what would this team look like? It's one thing to say oh, what if Francesca Pond came back because she could have because of COVID? No. What would this team look like with Pond plus the 2 Elizabeths? All the talent that we could theoretically have had this year probably makes this a Final Four team. Just spitballing there, or an ACC champion type team.
And I think it becomes a lot closer of a race for that ACC regular season title. It's not a Louisville, NC State, and then Georgia Tech, and then the rest of the field. It is Louisville, NC State, Georgia Tech at the 3 at the top, and then the rest of the field. And I agree. I think there's an argument to be made. I wouldn't go as far as Final Four team. I think there's the potential, sure, with all of that talent, but at the same time, you see the Elizabeth's time with Louisville has been split. One of them is getting a lot of minutes. The other isn't. Pond wanted the bag, so she went to back to Italy to play basketball, which full credit and full respect. I'm not gonna knock that. You want the money, you want the money. But
also, she graduated. She got her degree.
Yeah, she got a degree. There's no like player rights and everything, like players do whatever they want. I have no qualms with that. But I think you raise an interesting point. I just I would not go as far as saying Final Four team. A Final Four potential Elite Eight team. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair. But my point where I was going to go with all this is we've had all this talent on the flats, and I'm pretty darn sure we can do it again. We did that with coach fired in scandal and no recent history of success. Like, yeah, they went to the WNIT finals and whatnot. But now you have stuff to recruit to. You have a brand new locker room. You have a Sweet 16 team. You have one of the most likable figures in all of college sports as your head coach. Like, and quite frankly, the men can say a lot of similar things. It's success begets success. And I think the ladies, yes, they'll have more expectations next year, but I think they'll have more to work with, which is why, you know what, Sweet 16, give them some experience, get some eyes on the team. I don't think, even if we beat South Carolina today, I don't know if we had 4 potential top 1-2 seed victories in a row in us,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was going to happen at some point. I wasn't embarrassed by this game. I don't think anybody should be. They played their hearts out. They kept it in and manageable when it could have gotten a whole hell of a lot
It
more.
almost got out of hand in that third quarter. It almost got way out of hand in that third quarter.
Well, they drew it back from 17 down to 6 or 4 down.
They ended the quarter because South Carolina couldn't miss. They were 10-12 during that quarter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh. And it's frustrating to see somebody be that effective, but this is one of the best teams on the planet that they just played, and that's even more true in than it is when you say oh yeah, Alabama, could they beat the Browns kind of thing. Well, in the WNBA, there's only a handful of teams, so it's quite literally a top 20 team on the planet that we just played. So
fair. I mean, losing by 12 to the second overall seed in the tournament, either a top 5 team in the nation. I'm not super disappointed. I'm with you. I'm not super disappointed. Again, just quibbles with how they got there. They'll be back.
I think there's no systematic talent coaching whatever issue that I'm worried about. I trust that Nell will go recruit, some people will come back, and then run it back next year,
Yeah, it really comes down to who else shows up in the ACC, I think. You saw Cuse sort of hang with Tech until late in the season in terms of the standings as that second-tier team to Louisville and NC State. But, I don't think there is a cohesive argument that you can make for any of the teams left in the lower pack to say that they'll move up into that second tier with Tech right now, at least.
Yeah, there's definitely teams that have gotten better. Clemson used to be a doormat, now they're middle of the table. Wake Forest, similar. There's just not really a defined bunch of risers outside of Tech. And I think that you're right. That gives us something to capitalize on. And I think that, speaking of Syracuse, it feels like Tiana.
You're gonna butcher her name. You're gonna butcher it. Don't even try.
She's 25. She started with Syracuse a long time ago.
She got a redshirt year, a medical redshirt year, and then played 4 other years.
Yeah,
I think.
So, it's that is the star and the heart and soul of their team. So, it gives Tech more, I guess,
maneuvering space.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
They'll be back. I am convinced of it. They will be back. in this sort of situation next season. It was a fun ride. Both of these teams were fun to watch late in the season. I'm not disappointed. Like you said, we're hanging 2 new banners.
Speaking of both of these teams, I do want to get this blurb in because I watched Pastner postseason media availability, and I did not know that when Josephs got fired, before they hired Coach Nell Fortner, they had Pastner out there coaching the ladies and helping out with them. I thought that was so funny. I don't know if it should be funny, but I was amused.
I don't know if it's. I mean, I guess that's not unexpected. I hesitate to actually say it's expected of him to do that. You'd think that they'd grab or they'd grab one of Pastner's assistants to coach the women's team in the interim, or just grab one of the. I mean, there was an assistant coach that was the interim head coach.
Yeah,
I'm confused. I'm confused about why that was a situation when they had an interim coach.
yeah, I don't know, but either way, that was like something that I heard, and I thought of the old like John Heisman coaches baseball and football and basketball. Bobby Dodd is coordinating the football team and still coaching, but stuff like that. Like you just don't hear, I guess, interesting things like that in modern sports. Like it just seemed like a little nugget of like, yeah, we used to have coaches that like coached 8 teams at once,
Hey, labor specialization is a hell of a drug, all right?
Hey, that's what'll get you the DH faster than you can shake a stick at staring at 3 straight pitches down the middle.
We don't have to get into that. I'm not in the mood to talk about the Braves until like 2 weeks from now. I don't want that stress. I've had enough of sporting stress for a day.
You know what happens in like 2 weeks from now, right?
Opening day? Question mark?
No, opening day is in like 1 week. Cubs Braves, I believe, is the second week of the season. So,
dear Lord. Okay, we're done. We're done. See everyone next week. I'm gonna have to go recover from this.